Hey everybody, we're here at Marty's Market for our second meeting of the Integrated Meetup, I can't even say it, Integrative Medical Professionals Meetup group. We've got a small group today, but we have a real great presentation from Polansky, an old friend of mine. And we've known each other for, we just figured out, over 20 years now. It's kind of sad to say. But you're here to tell some really fun things about enzymes and nutrition and a whole bunch of things that we don't know yet. So.
Okay. I thought I'd start by just explaining part of the interest in enzymes came about when I was at a macrobiotic conference, and a medical doctor got up and said, why do some people heal from cancer and why do others not? And he said, enzymes a key factor. So I started doing research, and there wasn't that much information available. I've been blessed to study with Dr. Howard Loomis, who's actually the person that took up the work from Hal, who only did theoretical work, and has done the clinical work and research in terms of developing this. One of the things that we think about is, are we eating healthy foods? And when we eat them, are we getting the benefit from them? Well, one of the factors that I think we miss is that we actually need to be able to digest and assimilate what we're eating to get the nutrients from the food. A good example of this came about with a gal that came to see me, and this includes supplements. But she was taking a lot of fish oil. Her medical doctor said, I don't understand. You're taking 5 times the amount of fish oil of anybody else, and yet you're deficient in all your fat-soluble vitamins. Well, when I tested her, she couldn't digest and assimilate fats. So she could take as much fish oil as she wanted, but she wasn't assimilating it, and as a result couldn't get the fat-soluble vitamins from her food or from any supplements. So I think that's a big factor that we don't always realize, and that's why I call it the second factor in nutrition, that this is a big issue in terms of how are we doing, in terms of what we're able to digest and assimilate from what we're eating. So one of the things I thought I'd do is actually give you a little bit of a demonstration, because this really shows the point that when we eat things, we can actually get some benefit if we have some additional support. One of the things that we hear about is if we have heart disease and are taking statin drugs, it's important to have coenzyme Q10. Now, why is it called coenzyme? Anybody ever think about that?
It's codependent?
No, not exactly. But you know the answer?
Coenzymes work with an enzyme in order to act.
Exactly. So if you want an analogy, we're going to build a house. We have all the lumber, the bricks, the pipes, everything, all the materials we need. The house doesn't get built unless you have somebody to do the work. This is the same thing in our body. Enzymes are involved not only in digestion, but in every metabolic process in the body. So if we're deficient in enzymes, we're not going to be able to do the work that we need to do. And one of the areas that's really critical that uses a lot of enzymes are actually in the white blood cells for our immune system. So that's another indication in terms of there may be an enzyme deficiency, but also such things as bloating, gas. Those types of things are signs that we're not adequately digesting our food. So I'm going to do a demonstration to show you what difference it can make if you take an enzyme, preferably at the beginning of the meal, but any time when you're eating. So what I did was to prepare some oatmeal, and as you can see, it gets fairly solid after it sits for a while. So I have 2 different types of enzymes, one that's better for carbohydrates and one that's better for digesting fats and protein. And you'll see that a good quality enzyme can work with either one. So all I'm going to do is take one of these out, and just to make it easier, I'm going to open up because it's a powder. Now, one of the things that's challenging when you're working with enzymes is there's nothing guaranteed in terms of the quality. There's no standards in terms of how much of an enzyme's in there, the quality, or anything from company to company. So you can look at the back and say it has this much of such and such. That doesn't tell you anything.
Are there's some brands that you trust that you've gotten good results with your patients?
Well, one of the things that I like to tell people is I like to do the demonstration with these, and at one point, before I got involved with this to actually get training, I was going to an herbalist, and she said, oh, you need a digestive enzyme, go to the health food store. So I was taking them thinking that was going to be beneficial. Well, I've done this demonstration, and I stopped doing it because you'll see what it does with a good quality enzyme. That one, within 2 days, it started to digest this. This, in comparison, I'm going to ask for some support here. So just stir this up.
Okay.
That one for the white is actually one that has an enzyme for digesting carbohydrates, but you can see it works equally well for one that's balanced, but it has more enzymes to digest protein and fats. So that was solid.
That was solid.
So you can just pass that around and see that if you're taking a good enzyme, it's going to actually cause the food to become liquid in a matter of minutes, enabling you to better assimilate the nutrients in the food.
That was solid, so now it's liquid just from those enzymes.
So one of the things that we do is we get enzymes from the food if it hasn't been processed. So fresh food has the enzymes. If you think about a piece of fruit that over time it gets different, that's because it has enzymes. But that doesn't help with the shelf life of food. So all of our processed food has the enzymes taken out, as whenever you cook your food. So when you're cooking food, you're destroying enzymes. So as a result, many people are very deficient in their enzymes.
Most people don't eat very much raw food at all, right?
That's correct.
And so
We think of iceberg lettuce as one example of something which doesn't have much nutrients as well.
this is actually turning into liquid. That's
But Jan,
amazing.
don't you think people also differ in their ability to digest raw food too?
That's a big factor because the cellulose that's in the raw food, we do not have the enzyme to digest it. So, one of the factors whenever they're talking about so much raw food, it depends too on your ability to actually assimilate that, which is why they do things which is juicing and other methods to try to make it easier because you're breaking it down. It's an excellent
And the
point.
amount of raw food for each person really varies too, right? Depending on
Yeah, I think
constitution
people have
and
different constitutions.
different racial types and blood types and all different things.
And it's really a factor in terms of how much, think about it, how much have you been eating of certain types of things because your system has to work harder. I like to tell people that if we look at our digestive system, our pancreas is about 5 times the size of other animals because we cook our food, destroy the enzymes, so it has to not only produce the insulin but produce the enzymes for digestion. And that's a big factor. So by taking food that has enzymes in it, you're helping in terms of being able to digest it better. When you take the supplement as well, the pancreas doesn't have to work as hard, and that extra enzymes can then go in for work metabolically as well as support your immune system.
So, talk about how enzymes are related to obesity and weight loss.
Okay, if you look at obesity, oftentimes people are eating the wrong foods, but it's also nutrient deficiency. I think the other factor in terms of that is metabolic syndrome and what's going on there when you're looking at the nervous system. Now, one of the things in my studies with Dr. Loomis is he has clinical work and experience, and he's not just treating it with digestive enzymes, but he's using herbs. And a good example is if the adrenals and thyroid are out of balance and need additional support, you can use herbal things. But if you can't digest your food, what benefit are you getting from herbs or any other supplements you're taking because you're not assimilating those as well? So he'll combine, and it looks like a small amount, but you need far less of the herbs that are being used to support an organ function. So the testing can actually show you not only what foods you aren't digesting and assimilating, what types of macronutrients, but what organs, as a consequence, are stressed, because when an organ is stressed, it requires more nutrients and produces more waste. So with obesity, what you're having is a problem not only digesting with the quality of the food, but also what's going on in the whole system. Because if the endocrine system and the nervous system are out of balance and highly stressed, you're not going to deal with it. One of the things that, and from my studies, talks about, okay, the first thing you do whenever you're under stress, we talk about sympathetic dominance. You're going to require more alkalizing minerals, but you're also going to use your essential fats for energy. That's the first source. Then it goes and looks at the other ones. So one of the things that I like to tell people is, why is this called the universal stress point? Because
You sit at the computer all day?
yeah. But it's also a test point for essential fatty acids. And a supplement that he's created that not only has those with the enzymes, but it also called RBS, because this is what was amazing to me. I actually felt like I had a band at one point because of all the stress that I was experiencing around my chest area.
Yeah. It was like
And
your
when I started
constriction
taking
of the-
that supplement, all of a sudden I could take huge deep breaths that I wasn't able to before, because it actually expands the intercostal muscles, enables you to take deeper breaths, because it's, again, supporting that. So you look and say, are you nourishing the endocrine system and the nervous system? Because Again, with stress, after the nervous system isn't functioning, the endocrine system is going to go and start trying to address it. So your adrenals and thyroid go out. And that whole thing controls so much in terms of the body, so you go into metabolic syndrome with all the stress and the cortisol imbalances.
What kind of testing do you do?
I do two types. The one that was actually developed by Dr. Loomis is actually a palpation exam. And one of the things that, from a medical point of view, you might find interesting, he believes everything has to be something that can be repeatable, scientifically proven, and something that will stand up in a court of law. So this is something that definitely will work that way. And by doing that, it will show me what areas are stressed, what organs are stressed, as well as what nutrients you aren't digesting and assimilating. The other one has been developed by a German medical doctor where it tests the energy meridians. And the reason I decided to add that is because it can show somebody on a screen the progress that they're making from period to period, as well as what organs and systems are stressed. But the whole idea behind it and philosophy is very similar to what Dr. Loomis said, that you have to work from those points of view to make sure you're digesting and assimilating, balancing the nervous system and endocrine system, and then have the organs of elimination working before you try to address any other imbalances and toxicity.
Is the palpation exam that you do based in part on some like traditional Chinese medicine principles? It sounds similar.
He's taken it a step further, so one of the things that he's done is to actually look both in terms of the energy meridians, but also in terms of the cerebral spinal fluid, and is that blocked in terms of that, so that you're either not able to produce energy or to eliminate waste, which would be another factor in obesity.
And what kind of a doctor is Dr. Loomis?
Dr. Loomis is actually very interesting. He actually is a chiropractic background. He worked in hospitals, so part of the initial assessment includes a 24-hour urinalysis to see what's happening over a 24-hour period with what people are digesting and assimilating and what is out of balance. The palpation exam, and this is something that's different. For a homeostatic digestive challenge, you come in the morning without having eaten or not having eaten 6 to 8 hours before you come in. I test you to find out what nutrients have you run out of, what organs are stressed as a result, give you a balanced food source, and retest you 45 minutes, like it's powder, so you can see how well they assimilate that. Then give you a balanced food source with enzymes and say, if you could better digest your food, what impact would that have?
So then there are repeated urine tests after the different challenges?
No, the urine test is, the palpation is repeated after each one. And that shows me what's happened, so I can see, okay, this happens, this is you run out of nutrients. This is when you eat, and it's interesting to see when something's further stressed, that's saying, okay, digestion's a big issue for you. Or what's going to happen? Can we even meet your nutritional needs if you could better digest and assimilate the food? Or have you, and I use the term whole leg, how depleted are you with certain nutrients that these organs are still stressed and you're not able to meet those needs? We really need to work on meeting the nutritional needs far more effectively to help nourish the body so it can even start healing. And then what I've done is combine that and go from there, because the other testing was actually can show you not only which supplements are best suited of different ones, but the quantity. So you can test that as well. And that's based on EAV, or electronic acupuncture according to Vol's technique. So that combination has proved to be very effective, and I haven't seen other things that really look at somebody before they've eaten and run out of nutrients, after they eat, and then after they've had enzymes to see where the status is in the system.
And where is your office?
I'm based in Ellison Park, so yeah, not too far from you.
We'll have your website and phone number and all the contact information up on the video as well.
So what I did is actually prepare a handout. So there's actually some things that can indicate whether or not you're absorbing the nutrients in your food, and then some of the indications that you are having an enzyme deficiency. So that can give people a different understanding in terms of this. So one of the things we don't typically associate with, I know there's an issue, and I go to a gynecologist who specializes in reproductive health for women and helping women who have problems getting pregnant. But one of the things that essential fats are critical for is not only the permeability of the cell wall to get the nutrients in and out of the cell, but also your whole reproductive system. So that can be a factor in terms of your ability to carry a baby to full term, as well as the ability to induce labor.
This is a big list. What percentage of, like, all the people that go to the hospital for something, what percentage of those issues do you think are related to enzyme deficiencies?
Well, one of the things that I learned is actually stress is the source of so much. It's affecting, they found out that we have also the enteric nervous system that is also affecting our ability to digest and assimilate. So when we're under stress, we're not going to digest and assimilate as well, first of all. But that is a major factor. So when we look at this, not to say that there aren't other factors, but underlying issues with stress, your ability to digest and assimilate, and then what happens in the gut, how well you're eliminating the waste in your system. We know that the neurotransmitters, serotonin, so much is tied to the health of the gut as well as our immune system. So tremendous amount of our health is associated there.
There's more and more research coming out all the time with the gut. I mean, it's probably the most important immune organ. And they think that, you know, a lot of diseases are related to things that enter the body through the gut, and, you know, inappropriate responses where you're supposed to be just absorbing stuff and taking it into the body. There are allergic reactions, and it's not like allergy like we thought of it years ago. This is on a really different level, and there's a lot of research in the traditional medical literature coming out about that now.
Dr. Chaudhry is doing quite a bit with nutrition as it relates to mental health too, and especially that issue about the bacteria in the gut and how directly it relates to, and you have it on the list here, you know, anxiety and those sorts of things.
Another example, if you want, is I had someone come to me. She didn't make the appointment. Her psychologist called and said, do you think you can help her? She's a nurse, and she actually had severe irritable bowel, was on disability for 1.5 years because of it, doubled over in pain daily. And she came in and saying, all right, you think you're going to be able to help me? I've gone to all these doctors, nobody's been able to help me, I've tried everything over the counter. And I said, well, let's see. So I get a call at the end of the week. I can't believe it. I have mild discomfort now. Now, we had to make dietary changes for where there's stress as well. After a couple months, she had improved so much, she said, okay, can you help me? I've been on antidepressants for 7 years. I would like to get off of them. And I said, first of all, I don't deal with that unless you have doctors overseeing this. She talked to her psychiatrist, and he said he would oversee the whole process to help her slowly wean off. And I said, because you've changed your diet and at this point had eliminated the white sugar and white flour, I said, I know that we've improved the health of the gut. Let's see what we can do. So we worked with that, and lo and behold, it took over 1 year, but she slowly weaned off of that. The part that was amazing to me, because we were also working with essential oils, but she called me after a couple months and she said, I don't want to jinx it. I'm almost afraid to say anything. But she said, I didn't bother telling you. I've been suicidal daily before I went on antidepressants and while I've been on them. I haven't had any suicidal thoughts for the past 2 weeks. Then I get a call about a month later, and this is Christmas time. Is this the way it's supposed to feel? I didn't know that I could actually have a happy Christmas, and I'm humming and singing. This never happened before. So this can improve the quality of somebody's life dramatically.
Jan, is your approach to eventually get people to the point where they don't have to keep taking stuff, you know, where they can eventually get on the right kind of food and be sort of doing their own thing, or does that depend on the person?
There's two factors. One, it depends on the person, their age, and what they're doing. But they've also shown, even the Cleveland Clinic, that as we age, we do not produce enough stomach acid to be able to adequately digest protein, which is associated, and you might be interested, I can share the article that Dr. Loomis wrote on geriatric nutrition and how much that we think is associated with old age, and those factors are actually not digesting and assimilating the nutrients in the food. So what I like to do is to get people to the point, because I have a nun, we've got her in and she knows this is what she needs for a digestive enzyme, and she takes a probiotic. That's it. I had another man who had problems with a lot of gas and diarrhea, and we got things straightened out, and he said, well, am I ever going to deal with this? Well, he also had a heart issue, so there was an herb that he needed to support the heart with the hawthorn. But I said, we've gotten you to the point that you're now on maintenance. Yes, because you're older, he's 62, you're going to need a digestive enzyme. but this is the basic ones that you're going to need, and that I think can be something that's great. In comparison, I worked with a gal that was 11 years old. It took 2 months. She dealt with everything and didn't need anything.
Is the probiotic always a supplement, or can you do that with food?
You can do that, which is food, if people are willing to go that route. But how many people are going to get unpasteurized sauerkraut, use kefir, those the things that they need?
It depends on the person too, which one will work, because they're different, organisms. We find that with the probiotic substances, that one works for somebody and another one doesn't, and you have to experiment a little bit to find the one that works, because there's so many different organisms, and you already start with your own flora.
So it's really important depending on what somebody's willing to do. And I've had clients anywhere from more than willing to follow through and do the things that they need to do, all the way to after a month a woman came back and she said, here's all this stuff. I'll be damned if I'm going to cook for my husband. He has cancer, and if I have a day, a month, a year, it doesn't matter. It's not worth it to me. So how far people are willing to take responsibility and put the effort into eating differently is a big factor. The other factor that is different in terms of my training with Dr. Loomis is he doesn't just look at nutrition, he looks at structure and function and how they work together. So I actually recommend exercises that can help people, that will support that. And if people do this, I say it's a three-legged stool. You look at what you're eating. So the dietary recommendations, they're saying, here's some things that you're going to have far more stress in your system because you have problems digesting and assimilating. So you can take the enzymes, but you're better off avoiding these foods. Take these foods, do the exercises, because that will show in terms of what's happening with the different things, as well as the supplements, and we can bring the body back into balance. Again, that depends on how long the system's been out of balance, how much stress, and what's the source of stress. I like it when I saw a gal, hadn't seen her for a year, and I said, you look great, just fantastic. What happened? I can't believe it. You lost weight, you just look great. She said, I got a divorce. So she eliminated her source of stress. Well, some people aren't going to go that far, but you have to figure out what's your source of stress.
Do you advocate macrobiotic or raw food diets or any particular diet?
What I found over the years, it really depends on the individual and what they want, not what I could say. So I can say, what is your lifestyle? What are you willing to do? The thing that I had is a man who has his own business. He said, I don't cook. I really want to lose weight. What can you tell me to do? Well, I had to go from that point of view. Another man came in and said, I'm eating out all the time and I eat TV dinners. Well, I could change the brand that he has, and I could tell him this is what you select at a restaurant, but I'm not going to tell him you have to cook the food. So to me, it's more a matter of what approach are you interested in? How much do you want to do that? I mean, it's delightful when somebody says, oh, I'm more than willing to cook if it's going to help me, if I can get the energy to be able to cook. And that oftentimes is a factor for people. But oftentimes people's lifestyle doesn't permit that, so then we look at how can we meet the nutritional needs more effectively without going that route.
Thank you so much, Jan. What's your website?
It's personalhealthdynamics.com, which is a long one.
And what's your best phone number to reach you?
412-492-0767.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be here next second Friday of the month in August. And thanks to Mike Sorg, Sorgatron Media, is doing all the video and editing and everything. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks, Jan.